10-year-old Billy lay awake. Moonlight sliced through his curtains, painting an unsettling tableau on his bedroom wall. His heart thumped against his ribs, a frantic drum against the silence of the night. Each rustle of leaves outside his window sounded like footsteps, slow and deliberate. He was alone, utterly alone, in the hushed darkness of his room. He squeezed his eyes shut, pulling the covers tight, trying to block out the shadows that danced in the corners of his vision. Shadows that seemed to writhe and twist, taking on monstrous forms. His breath hitched in his throat, each inhale shallow and quick. Fear, cold and clammy, wrapped its icy fingers around him. He had always been afraid of the dark. The unknown depths it held, the secrets it whispered, chilled him to the bone. But tonight was different. Tonight the fear was sharper, more profound. An unnerving feeling gnawed at the edges of his mind, telling him something was wrong, terribly wrong. Tonight there was something under his bed. He could feel it, a presence, cold and menacing, lurking just inches beneath him, waiting. A floorboard creaked outside his room. Billy flinched, his blood turning to ice. He held his breath, listening intently. Silence. Maybe it was just the old house settling. He tried to convince himself it was nothing, a trick of his overactive imagination. But deep down, a primal instinct screamed at him, urging him to run, to hide. Then he heard it, a soft whisper, barely audible, coming from beneath the bed. His name, uttered in a raspy voice that sent shivers down his spine. His eyes flew open, wide with terror. He squeezed them shut again, willing himself to wake up from this nightmare. But the whispers continued, growing louder, more insistent. They seemed to slither around him, seeping into his bones, chilling him to the core. His name repeated over and over again, each utterance laced with an evil he couldn't comprehend. His fear threatened to consume him, to drown him in its icy depths. He knew he couldn't stay here, trapped in this room with whatever lurked beneath his bed. He had to escape, now! He threw the covers back, his heart pounding against his ribs. Adrenaline surged through him, momentarily eclipsing his fear. He scrambled off the bed, his bare feet hitting the cold, hard floor. He didn't dare look down, didn't dare take his eyes off the door. He stumbled towards the bedroom door, each step a monumental effort against the terror that threatened to cripple him. His hand trembled as he reached for the doorknob, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He fumbled with the latch, his fingers clumsy and uncoordinated. Panic surged through him as the whispers intensified, rising to a guttural growl. The doorknob slipped from his grasp and he stumbled back, his heart threatening to burst. He was trapped in his own room with the unknown entity that haunted the darkness beneath his bed. The whispers seemed to mock him now, their tone laced with a triumphant glee that sent chills down his spine. Then he saw it, a faint glow emanating from beneath the gap in the closet door. A sliver of hope pierced the suffocating darkness, a beacon in the storm of his terror. His grandfather's lantern. He had forgotten he had left it in the closet, a forgotten relic from a camping trip. With renewed determination, he crawled towards the closet, keeping his eyes on the faint glow. His heart pounded in his ears, a frantic rhythm against the hushed whispers that seemed to press in on him. The air grew heavy, thick with an unseen menace. He reached the closet door and slowly, cautiously, pulled it open. The lantern sat on the floor, casting long, dancing shadows on the wall. He snatched it up, his fingers closing around the cold metal. It was a small comfort, but it was something, a weapon against the unseen terror. He fumbled with the lighter, his hands shaking so badly he could barely strike a spark. Finally, with a soft whoosh, the lantern flickered to life, bathing the room in a warm, comforting glow. The shadows retreated, shrinking back into the corners. Armed with the lantern, he slowly turned towards the bed, his heart pounding against his ribs. The whispers had ceased, replaced by a heavy silence that was somehow more unnerving. He held his breath, bracing himself for what he might find. He lifted the lantern, its light piercing the darkness beneath the bed. For a moment, he saw nothing but shadows and dust bunnies. Then he saw it, a pair of eyes glinting in the lantern light. They stared back at him, filled with an ancient, unknowable hunger that made his blood run cold. He recoiled in horror, stumbling back until he hit the wall. The lantern slipped from his grasp, clattering to the floor. The flames sputtered and died, plunging the room back into darkness. He was engulfed once more in the suffocating blackness, the unseen eyes burning into him. He screamed, a primal sound of terror that echoed through the empty house. He scrambled back, his hands outstretched, searching for an escape. But there was nowhere to go. He was trapped, alone in the darkness with whatever lurked beneath the bed. A cold hand closed around his ankle, its grip like a vice. He thrashed and kicked, his screams echoing in the darkness, but the grip only tightened, dragging him slowly towards the edge of the bed. He caught a fleeting glimpse of the creature as he was pulled over the side. It was unlike anything he had ever imagined, a grotesque mockery of life itself. Its skin was pale and slimy, stretched taut over a skeletal frame. Its eyes, those terrible eyes, burned with a cold, malevolent intelligence. Then, everything went black. He awoke to the sound of his mother's frantic cries and the blinding glare of the bedroom light. He was safe in his bed, tucked in tight. The nightmare was over, or was it? As his mother hugged him close, whispering reassurances, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was still wrong. Something was different. He glanced down at his ankle where the creature's cold hand had grasped him. There, on his skin, were 3 long, thin scratches, still oozing blood. A chilling reminder of the nightmare under the bed.